hello there, and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations, and we are going to be jumping into, I'm excited to try this, but I'm a little intimidated to try this because it involves sewing, and I'm not a huge sewer. So we'll see how it goes. It looked easy. We'll see. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to take some cotton cording and old rag material, and we're going to turn it into a rag rope basket. Sounds cool. We'll see how I do. So what you need is some kind of, like the soft cotton cording. This is maybe about 5 millimeters thick. And does it say on the outside inches for y'all? 1/4 inch, I think it was. Yeah. So I did a 1/4 inch thick, and then you need scrap fabrics. So you need them in just strips, okay? So not too thick. This is maybe about 1.5 inches because, as it turned out, I was at my mother's place. I was going through any scrap fabrics I had, and I was thinking I was going to do kind of a really boho kind of looking thing with a lot of blues and yellows and oranges and stuff. And she gave me a bag of scrap fabric that when I looked at it, turns out this is all fabric that is left over from when I made a quilt, non-sewer, made a quilt, for my eldest son, who is in his 40s. Oh God, it must be, I made that for him 20 years ago, yes, over 20 years ago. So these strips have been hanging out at my mom's place forever, 25 years maybe. But it turns out, because the quilt, I was sewing a bunch of these strips together and then cutting them and making boxes out of them and stuff. I can do straight lines. I can do that. So the quilt was all straight lines. And there was still tons of this fabric already cut to the sizes I need. So I'm like, okay, we are so doing a black and cream quilt, right? It's like, because I got tons of this stuff. So let me move this off to the side because these are the extra pieces. Oh my gosh. Hopefully I love this because maybe I'll make another one. So this technique you could use, we're going to try a basket, which is the more advanced one. And why I insist on starting with the more advanced skill rather than the flat, easy one first, I have no explanation for beyond my tendency to just jump into things that I shouldn't. So we've just got all these scrap fabrics, and this is what we're going to use to wrap around our rope, and then we are going to be sewing these all together. Now you could sew them together by hand, but as much as I dislike sewing by machine, I dislike sewing by hand that much more. So I'm going to show you this first part, which is kind of the wrapping part. And then when I actually go to use the machine, I'll pull you in over my shoulder so that you can see close up what I'm doing and not see my face, because at the end of the day, what do you really care? So we are just going to start by using our fabrics, and I have no idea which one to start with. So we are going to kind of, let me get all of that out, and I'm thinking which way is the easiest for me to go. We're just going to take this and kind of begin by wrapping that tightly around that end, and just kind of, all right, we know from previous videos I got awful pins here, but we're just going to kind of pin it in place, and then we're just going to take our fabric and wrap it nice and tight all the way down our rope. And when we get finished with that, we will just pin it in place and do another color. So, you know, some of my strips are long. This is lengthy. Some are not as long. Go with whatever works for you, right? However much of that particular color. You could do this all in like a cream or like a coffee stained fabric and just have that natural kind of cottony hemp look for it, which would be awesome too. Now this is going to be the base of my bowl. And you could use the same technique to do flat placemat or flat placemats or flat little heating pads, right? Almost like little fabric trivets if you want. So I'll give you some of those ideas, but there's a way to be able to curve it up and to make a bowl. And so I'm going to try that. Of course, if I start doing it and I'm having a hard time even making a flat thing, then I may be stopping. But I got this idea. I was watching a YouTube video from a woman who does a lot of junk journal stuff, but as much as she sews a lot of those things, she also had an example, so Roxy Creations, an example of making these, like some placemats and stuff. So I thought it was cool, and I decided that I'd just jump in and with both feet and give it a try. All right. All right, so that was the end of that fabric. So let me just pin that in place while I grab, maybe I want to go into a black, and maybe not quite as long this time. So let me put some of those pieces over there so I can do little switches. And all that I'm going to do is pin that piece in place over top of the other one once I get that rolling. So there we go. And because your rope is cotton, it actually goes through quite easily. And you don't have to do the full rope before you start sewing. So you can just sew as much rope as you have and then add more fabric onto the rope, sew that, add more fabric onto the rope, sew that. So it's not like you're having to know 100% before you start exactly how long it's going to be, or do you have enough done. You can just keep adding as you go. You just want to maybe have enough done that it's worth breaking out the sewing machine and doing some sewing. To start, so before we head over to the sewing machine, to start this, you're going to take that beginning end rope, we're going to take our pin out, hang on to that, and we're going to take that little lip of fabric and we're going to start by tucking that in and then rolling this pinwheel or snail wise, whichever makes sense to you. We're going to keep rolling that around itself multiple times. Now, we don't have to get it too huge to start. And then take a pin and just kind of push it straight down in. Okay, maybe you've got better pins than I do. But push it straight down in to kind of hold it. Yeah, see, my pins just bend. So just put your pin in place to be able to take it over to your sewing machine so that we can start by sewing it flat before we can start sewing it curved. So you just start with that little pinwheel pattern, and then the real sewing begins. All right, so to start, we're going to take that little pinwheel and we are going to just sew it in place. And for this, you don't have to go around in a spiral. We just are looking to anchor it. So you can just sew straight across. You can kind of back up and twist it over to the side. So you can see that this outside rim wasn't caught, but the center has been. So what we could do is just start sewing in our spiral, and we just start sewing in that groove, right? That we want to catch both sides of it with our zigzag. So we just start sewing right around, aiming for that groove so that we can catch with our zigzag either side, and then pulling it tight as we continue to go in our spiral. Okay, so here's the start of my disc. So I at least know that I could do a placemat, pot holder, right, little trivet. But one of the things that you want to check is, did you catch all the seams? And right now, I've missed that section in there. So I'm going to go back before I do anything else and make sure that I fix that. Okay, let's see if I caught it all that time. Yes, yahoo. Okay, so I am going to wrap more rope because I've used it all. You can see that as the basket base gets bigger, then the longer that you have, you might make one turn around, maybe not multiples, but I'm going to wrap a bunch more rope, and I'll get the base done, and I'll come back to you when we start looking at turning it from a mat to a bowl, because I've kind of passed some of the first hurdles, which I didn't think I'd get this far. But that's going to be the next tricky part. So then our next tricky part is handles. So the turn and the handles, those are the exciting parts lying ahead. So hang on, and I'll get a little bit more done. All right, I'm back a little sooner than I had said. I'm no further on my disc, but I looked at some of the past footage and I realized y'all didn't see me doing the disc part. Somehow, I think I was so anxious about the sewing part that I either forgot to push the button or I didn't push it hard enough. So yeah, I had a lovely conversation with Dead Air because you weren't there. So I thought that I'd bring you back, and I'm just going to stitch back over a section that I've already done just to kind of anchor this in. After all this work, I really don't want it falling apart. And I figured out my error message that I kept getting, which was a human error, not a machine error, of course. No big surprise there. But what we're looking at doing, and I will say that when we're on the same color fabric, it's a little bit more challenging to see, but I'm trying to stitch right in that gap, right? So that I'm catching both sides of the fabric and potentially some of the rope. And I am pushing it in nice and tight so that, again, my basket's going to be fairly tightly woven, and I'm not going to have tons of gaps in it. But as you saw before, I will go back and check and re-sew any spaces where it just didn't catch or where it's gapping a little bit or seems like, it's a bit of a challenge. It's a little easier to see when you're sewing the contrasting fabric colors, quite honestly. Okay, I'm just going to carry on until I get a bit of a base. I'm not going to go much further. I don't want this to be humongous in case that brings challenges of its own, and I know that I'm going to be sloping up a little bit. I'm just going to do a couple more turns and then come back at ya. Okay, I'm loving this. This is so cute. And now I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up. But I have a little bit of rope, and we're going to start to try and do the turn. So we have to turn this up. Okay, this is all it in theory, and kind of sew on an angle because it wasn't hard enough for me already. I'm not sure I'm even catching that. So I'm kind of pushing with my baby finger right up against the foot, right? Can you guys see? So I'm pushing that right up against the foot and trying to catch it on an angle all the way around. Now I will say I did this, oh, I can see spots that I missed already. I'll have to go back and get them. Least of my worries at this point. I did deliberately switch colors as I went to do this, just so I could see it a little bit better. You know, thinking it could make it a little bit easier on me. So hopefully I have enough rope done to make my turn. Oh my God. Can you guys see that? It's got a rim. That works. Oh, that's so exciting. Okay, it's small moments, guys, but man, that's exciting. Okay. Okay, we got a bit of a turn. Can you guys see that? Oh, I am so proud of myself. Okay, so I need to wrap some more cord, but look at how that's shaping up, you guys. That's really cute. And it's reversible. So if you think that one side is better than the other, when it's done, you can turn it inside out. Okay, awesome. All right, I'm gonna wrap up some more cord, and I'm going to take this up higher. And then, because you're doing exactly the same thing, just sewing, just make sure that your zigzag is big enough to catch both sides. I think that's kind of goes without saying, but I said it. So I'm gonna take this up higher, maybe only to about here-ish, right? So maybe about, what's that, 3 to 4 inches high. And then I have an idea of how to do handles. So I'll come back and I'll show you that part too. And so far, here's the thing. I really, really am not a good sewer. Obviously, you could see. And I'm making this work. So if you're not a sewer, don't feel that you can't do this, because man, if I'm doing it, you can do it. All right, I'm gonna carry on, and I'll be back when I get to the handles. Okay, this is the little basket so far. How stinking cute is that? I mean, I've got a lot of cleanup to do with some of the little threads and things, but man, I gotta tell you, this is way better than I ever thought that I'd be able to do, so I'm ahead. I've decided, I've done this kind of checkered row all the way around the outside once. So what I'm gonna do is I have enough wrapped already to do once more around. So I'm gonna make my handles at the same time. So what I'm thinking of doing is this. I'm going to take this up and I'm gonna stitch all of that handle instead of around here, okay? Just because the fabric is only wrapped, and I think I'm gonna need to do that. So I'm gonna stitch, what's that, maybe about 3.5 inches, and then I will come down and start stitching it along the side again. I'm then going to anchor it and come over and measure over on the other side. I'm going to want 2 handles, and it'd be nice if they're sort of in a roughly the same spot. So I'll do this, anchor it, then come and measure where I need to start the next one and where I need to put it down, and we'll go from there. So in my head, that works. And we'll see how it goes. So I'm already anchored on the other side, so I'm going to begin. Let me just, maybe that would make sense to measure 18.4 inches. So just so that I know on the other side how many inches I did. And here we're just going to want to take it up, measure to our 4. This to 14 here. Just going to stick a pin in there. Okay, let's give her a go. Up, foot. Okay, it seems to sew through that cotton cording just fine, but it just seemed to me that I should sew through this to strengthen it, make sure that fabric was all sewn on properly, rather than just wrapped, so it wasn't going to just all of a sudden unwrap on me. Get rid of that. Okay, and now I'm going to want to reattach it. Now, how many inches away? Let me just see. 18, 17, 16, 15, maybe about 3. Okay. Let's see how that goes. Oh my goodness, the things I get myself into. I don't know if I can get you guys, swing you guys over far further or not. Maybe a little bit. Okay. Okay, let me just sew far enough to get past this next pin. Just so I don't have it to contend with. I'm hoping that I make it to the last of my bobbin thread. Okay. So there's one little handle, and can you guys see? So one little handle, I think that looks pretty darn cute. And we're going to want to come across and do here and here. So stuck myself. So there's my 2 pins. Just to kind of mark where I'm going to start and stop the handle. So I'm going to sew until then, and then deke off to do my handle part. Okay, so we're at that first pin. I'm going to want to deviate out my 4 inches. So roughly to here. And sew up my handle. There's my foot pedal. There we go, baby. Come on. Okay, and now we're going to want to bring it on home, right where my finger is, and start attaching it about there. We'll see. And I figure I'm going to want to take this and attach this right by the end of that first handle. So then I have 2 solid rows all the way around. Now, to finish this off, what makes sense in my head, let me just unwrap this little bit. Is to cut my cord just before it. Alrighty. And pull my fabric nice and tight. And do a tight little, I'm just trying to do a tight little twist at that end. A little twist of just fabric. And then pin it, cut it, and let's try sewing it. Okay, so I missed right at the end there. I'm going to take that back in. Okay, let me take you out. Look at my basket. Okay, guys, this is too cute. I really like this in the black and white. I may have to try another one in the funky blues and stuff, but man, this is just gorgeous. So I don't think that my handles turned out too bad, you know, for faking it, because I didn't see how to do that on a basket, but that just kind of makes sense. I think definitely sew through the fabric to reinforce it and to make sure that your fabric doesn't unravel or anything. Check periodically for any holes and sew them before you get too far up. You could see where you could just do little shallow dishes, right? You could stop. You can certainly just make it nice and flat to do a placemat, or to do just like a pot, little fabric trivet, and you could put like just one little loop, one little handle on it if you wanted, or just leave it round. This will reverse, so you can pop it in and out. Okay, I'm keeping this. So, yeah, it's not for sale, just in case I never make another one. I love this. Look at the patterning. Look at how cool this is. I did make an effort to have at least 2 rows of any particular color, just because I was doing it fairly monochromatic. I think if you were doing this in multi-tones, you could just have a little splotch of yellow here and a little splotch of pink, so you wouldn't have to do full rows and for the striping. So you could just do shorter pieces, and that would be super cute. Okay, now that I'm saying that, I'm gonna have to make another colored one at some point. But you guys, I don't know how well you could tell over my shoulder as I was doing it, but seriously, it is mostly all just straight lines. It looks curved, but once you got the base going, I mean, you're just following just lines. The only part was lifting this up to be able to turn that, and that wasn't that tough. You are limited to what you can potentially fit within the arc of your sewing machine. You know, that because I had to be able to turn it, so this was probably the smallest width that I could maybe have managed without a lot of experience. Oh, another thread. You know, you're going to be cutting off a bunch of threads at the end, but seriously, if you try this, post pics. I want to see. And if you have made these and you got tips for me that would make it easier for me next time, I am delighted to hear that too. But let me know what you think about this project, because I am deeply in love with this. This is just so cool. And I would never have thought that I could make this. So hope you give it a try. Hope you enjoyed this one. I certainly did. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.